Yeah, I know.
I mean, let's say you need one more cabinet at the house, and you want to match what's there. So it may be different. I'm just saying for the ease of what we're doing today.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to get
Yeah,
a
yeah,
foundation.
what did I say? It was an inch space. So I've marked down an inch here, and I'm gonna draw, again, the top of the door, and an inch off the bottom will give me the bottom of the door. And actually, sometimes the bottom of the door is actually flush with the bottom of there, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so, and if we're using 2-inch rails, you notice I interchange all kinds of, I do this, but anyway, 2-inch rail and a 2-inch rail here. So, what does that do for me? It tells me another dimension of the door. I know that the door now is from here to here for height, which means the stiles, the vertical portions of a panel door, stiles are that tall. If I mark exactly where the panel goes inside, which we haven't figured out yet how we're going to do it, then I'll know how tall that panel is. So suddenly we'll already know now the panel size for this door. Because I have the width, I know it's 1/4 inch, and I know the height when I've finished marking that part out. Okay? Same goes for the back. The back of the cabinet, typically on a lower portion in the back, if this is the bottom of the cabinet, and the sides are like this, we're going to put a little rabbet in. We don't on the bottom. Okay? The bottom usually is like this because there's typically a rail across here that covers up that edge, and it's underneath the cabinet, and that's the nail where you screw into the wall. Some cabinets have that little rail on the inside. I think it's nicer to have it down below because then your inside of the cabinet's completely usable. So the bottom of the cabinet is actually narrower than the sides when we get there. So the cabinet, the back of the cabinet would go clear down to the bottom of this here. So there we know that this part right there is where the bottom of the cabinet back is. Same would be true of the top. I would just have the cabinet go, the back go clear to the top, clear to the bottom. Make sense?
It does not go by the, it doesn't go by the bottom.
Yeah, we
It
don't.
doesn't go down to the
We don't
bottom
have,
of
we don't
this.
have to put a dado or a rabbit in that, or the top. Unless for some reason you're gonna be able to see that,
Yeah.
then yes, we do that.
Okay.
But I don't see it's necessary, just because visually you never see it. Everyone's sleeping, it's getting past bedtime. How are we doing on time? I can't see a clock
It
here.
is 8 to 7.
Okay, good. So we're getting close to being done, actually, with the layout. All right, so there's our cabinet bottom and cabinet top. And if we're doing a flush overlay, completely flush door, again, we're going to show from the very bottom to the very top door. We don't even have to show that because we know that it's the full height, just like the doors on the full width for that flush cabinet door. However, we have hinges to put in. And what I like to do on hinges is I usually put them the center line of the hinge at 3 inches from the bottom of the door and 3 inches from the top of the door, just as a standard for myself. That's what I like to do. Now, we have 1 3/4 inches. If I go to 3 inches, that means I have 1 1/4 inches left before that hinge is the center of the hinge, and I still have room. That's something to check. Say if I'm going to do 3 inches from the bottom of the cabinet to the hole that I drill, and if you know these things are 35 millimeter, 32 millimeter, 35 millimeter holes. You're aware, most of you are aware of these hinges like this?
I got
Nope.
them in my house.
Yeah, you got them in your house. Well, it's a really convenient style. That's why they call them European style, because it's 35 millimeter, and they're spaced every 32
And they
inches.
close slowly.
These, well, not all of them do. They do now.
We have, I think, quite a few of them over here.
Yeah, these are called soft close. Yeah. Now,
And what drives you nuts is you go to shut the cupboard and you push it.
you can't shut it. Yeah.
It's like sliding doors on vans.
There you go. Right, they're automatically. So I like to just do 3 inches because that's just a standard that I have in my head. It makes it easy for me to when I'm drilling my doors, I can actually set up a jig 3 inches from here. Every door goes in, drill. and drill. I don't have to think about it. It's not like, oh, this cabinet's only 4 inches, this is 3, no, 3 inches all the time. But you want to make sure if you have in this case, the bottom, you want to make sure that this hinge will fit without hitting the bottom of the cabinet. Well, then you're going to start cutting and hacking and doing stuff. And the top, again, right there, you have no problem because there's the face frame, or there's the top of this cabinet, okay? So, this gives me an idea of, like, I know where my hinges go. And I usually mark those because I put these hinge plates, I don't have a screwdriver right with me, but will they get one real quick? These hinges come apart. Oh. And
They do.
there. I haven't used these before. This is a different brand. So these, if I use a lot of one brand, I have a jig set up so that once I have my cabinet sides all done, they're not assembled, I put my jig up, drill, drill, drill. In this case, I think there's 2 holes. So they're already pre-drilled, and before I assemble my cabinet, I actually screw them in. But I pre-drill these holes because I know right where they are based upon these marks that I put in here, 3 inches from the cabinet doors. So it's one of those, like, just efficiencies of over time. If I'm doing one cabinet, it's sometimes not worth it. But if you're doing a whole bunch, I'll spend, an hour just putting on hinge plates on every piece that has a hinge on it, so that when it comes time to assemble, it's already done. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing we need to be thinking about here is adjustable shelves. And there are, like I said a minute ago, well, I got these old-fashioned standards that go inside of a cabinet. And if you notice, the inside of this cabinet is, what, 27 or 27 inches or something like that. And these come in 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, and I got cheap ones because I didn't want to spend for 3 foot and you cut off. So I got 24-inch cabinets, 24-inch standards. They are numbered, so it's nice to do. Oh, you have a nice jig for the.
It's right up on the end
Okay.
of the second.
That's, yeah, I saw it one day and I thought, I wonder what that's for. So here's a jig for, it's Rockler brand for 5mm housing holes, index holes, all kinds of things for something like that. So when you have a cabinet piece, you can put this on. Is this for drilling adjustable shelves? Do we have the right bit for that?
We got so many bits, I don't know.
Okay. I made a jig like this for myself that was, do you know what a VIX bit is?
Yes.
Okay. Does everyone know what a VIX bit is? Okay, I got one in my drawer here if you want.
Yeah, get it out.
A VIX bit is something that centers on anything that has a hinge, a countersunk hole. It has basically a sleeve that centers itself into a hole. So it centers itself. Now this one has a slot, but it centers like here. It actually centers right on that hole, and then as you're drilling, it pushes in and drills a pilot hole right in the middle of where that hole is.
And VIX is a brand, there are
Okay,
a
hold
couple
on,
of other
I'm-
types.
Now, VIX is a brand, there's other types, right. I went and bought a special VIX bit that had a 1/4-inch hole, or a 1/4-inch drill bit. And I made myself a jig so that 1/4-inch drill bit was just like this, and I go zip, 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 and there's my 1/4-inch holes for my adjustable shelves. Now, I'm sure they make something for this size, but these are really, if these were the holes for the pins, they're really small holes. So, but that's a really nice thing to do, is to drill
That's
those.
more of a hinge.
This is for hinges. And they come in different sizes. So this might be too big of a hole, pilot hole, for the screw that goes in there. It might be stripped out pretty quickly because that's a pretty big hole for this size screw. This size screw is about a number 4 or something, and that just might be too big. So, thank you for getting that. Anyway, so with that in mind, we want to do a series of holes in one cabinet, and I'll do that on the European style because I think that's kind of nice. And we're going to put shelf standards like this in the other cabinet. They are numbered so that you can be consistent with how high they are. We're going to get 4 of them, and we can start right at the bottom so they're all centered at the top. And if you haven't, who hasn't seen this type of thing before? Has everyone seen these before? Okay, and you know how the little clips work on them? They clip down. They're really lousy, but we're gonna do it anyway. But what I like or don't like to do here is, instead of leaving the 1/2 inch material for these standards, this is a 5/8. They fitted perfectly for a 5/8, so you don't have to put any spacers in your dado. Is I have them so they don't go in all the way, so that's just a little bit above, because these have a curve to them. So I like to have them a little bit out like that, because I think it looks better in a cabinet to have them just a little bit. If you have them flush, then you see the edge of this dado. Not so nice. That's all. It's just aesthetic for me. And they come with nails, and so you put them in there and bang, 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 bang. You can do a stop dado. If you've not done a stop dado, it is where, if you do it on a table saw, you have your board and you have it figured out with a mark where the dado starts, and you go right down there and you go until you get to the other mark and you raise it up. And then you have to clean out that little part because it doesn't go all the way, not a square corner, it goes at an angle. You can dado those with a router as well. And we can talk about how to dado with a router, but the router table, sometimes that's a good thing to do. Okay. Questions so far? We're all getting sleepy. Okay.
We'll figure it out when we start.
Oh, yeah, of course, it'll become more clear.
I'm not ready for a test yet.
No. What's interesting is, like, I think what Ed said is like, you write down these measurements anywhere? Nope, not yet. But we're gonna go through and have every piece of wood written down with what size it is. Okay? So what's left to do is what? Depth, right? We have height, we have width. Let's do depth here, because that's a small amount. So, 12-inch cabinet. We're gonna figure this is the wall, okay? So if that's the wall, there's our 1/4 inch back. So, I'm going to start this way and say, okay, we have a 1/4 inch back, and I can't see a 1/4 inch with this thing like this, so I'm going to go back like that. There's a 1/4 inch. This is where in the cabinet shop I started in, they would go multiple lines to say that's the back. This is a waste of time for me. I know that's the back. Okay, so what else do we have here? We know that the cabinet is 12 inches deep.
That's 12.
Typically, that's 12 inches deep. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to draw, there is the front of the cabinet. If it's a Euro style thing, we have typically, I'm going to say, an 1/8 of an inch edge. There's iron on edges, which are like a 32nd of an inch thick. I have some of that we can actually show you, or there's some here somewhere we can show you, but I don't like doing those. So there's an 1/8 of an inch, the solid wood edging, and we're going to talk about how to edge effectively. And if I have a face frame, and one of the cabinets is going to be face frame, it's going to be 3/4 of an inch thick face frame. Okay, and there's the face frame. So right off the bat, we see two different things happening here. One is, because we're going to do the back of the cabinet like this for the sides, we know that the left and right sides are clear from here, from the wall, out to either 12 inches if they have an edge, or 11 1/4 if they don't have an edge,
11 1/4.
because there's a face frame,
Okay. Yeah.
which is 3/4. Okay? Top is going to be different, because the top we're going to go like that. Top and bottoms are going to be like that. So we know that the top and bottom is going to be to that line, to wherever we have face frame or not. Make sense so far? Okay. So here's also where we look at, we put a door on there. We're going to automatically give an 1/8 inch space for a door. That will depend on the hinge and how close you want to do it. But 1/8 of an inch is just for drawing purposes is the nice way of doing it. And I think I just drew that as 7/8 of an inch thick. Okay, 3/4 inch thick. And we don't really have to draw the doors very much here for either style, because we know they're 3/4 inch thick. We might want to say, when there's a face frame, we might want to actually draw the panel and say that's how this is. But we can do that as on here as well. Doesn't matter where we draw it, because we're going to understand it. If we're going to use the router bit, they come in as a, you just route it.
The coping